Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Habitual Growth Podcast. I'm Nate. This is Lisa. And of course, this isn't just another podcast. This is where our excuses come to die, discipline is built, and lives are changed. If you're here, it means you want more out of yourself and out of your life. And today, of course, is not about talking, it's about transformation. So today we're going to talk about a pretty interesting subject. The idea being you're going to consume this and then you're actually going to take it and move into action so that you can do more, be more, and live more. And with that, Lisa, today is something that I actually think is relevant to the political atmosphere that we've kind of been through this week. There's been really across the globe a lot of tumultuous things happening. I think people are really starting to wake up one way or another of the reality, of just our own environments and our own mental capabilities. But I had read something from Napoleon Hill the other day that kind of spurred this topic, which is you can train your mind to be happy or to set a goal and go achieve the goal. So what you're working towards isn't necessarily focused on the work that you're doing. You know, we talk a lot about on this podcast, our ability to maybe enjoy the journey, be present, like it is about I think a lot of that is true. But at the end of the day, we want to achieve our goals. We have our goals for a reason. They move us forward. They move our businesses forward. And one of those things, we're going to talk about happiness today. We're going to talk about some other, goal setting capabilities. And yes, you want to enjoy the journey, but at the same time, when you put your focus on the goal, and in this case, we're going to say you can train yourself to the habit of being happy. You actually, in the process, you are going through the process, you are present in the process, you understand what's happening, but you're not focused on the work that it takes in that process itself, if that makes sense. You're actually focused still on the goal. You just know any obstacle, anything that really comes your way that, is a setback or maybe is a little bit depressing or a little bit sad is just a part of the journey. It's teaching you something as you're still working towards the goal. So you don't sit in that moment too long. You continue to move forward. You continue to progress so that you can hit that achievement. And once you start to really push yourself to train your mind on, I'm going to achieve this thing, the work that you do isn't necessarily perceived as work. It is the journey because your eye is on the prize. So that was a long introduction.
That was a really long intro.
I hope that made a lot of sense. But how does that sit with you? I mean, I sent you a couple of quotes over this week. Does any of that resonate with kind of what you've been seeing, not only in your own personal life, but out there with your colleagues and, network and social communities?
Yeah, I think there's two different things, right? So you mentioned everything that's happening in the globe. And, I think that's one context of, being able to create a mindset of positivity, focus, action, that you are able to maintain despite external circumstances. And I would say to that, it's almost like the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So if you constantly think sad thoughts or thoughts that are anxious, it's eventually going to become a self-fulfilling belief. And so whatever your mind continues to tell you, whether it's happy, sad, anxious, joyful, that's ultimately what you will create in your life. So I think there's that big picture that people should keep in mind when it comes to setting goals and appreciating the journey and not getting wrapped up maybe in specific challenges or the hard work. I think that is true. And I think that comes from cultivating a mindset that is laser focused on the outcome so that when you hit those rough patches, it's a recognition of, I just have to get through this. I recognize that the work is hard. You're not changing the reality of a situation, but rather you see it as something you have to go through to be able to achieve what you see in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this has really hit me this week because, again, there seems to be a lot of heaviness, and weight in the world today in this week. But it's come from a couple of different sources. And usually when that happens to me, I like to pick it up. I sent you a quote, which I'm going to read here, which is actually from Alex Ramosi. And it says, the single greatest skill that you can develop is the ability to stay in a great mood in the absence of things to be in a great mood about, right? Alex is obviously somebody who's very successful. He's inspired millions and millions of young and old people around the world to continue to be better versions of themselves. But that was right on the back of, kind of what I was sharing about Napoleon Hill. And oftentimes we think about, yes, we need to get in this grind. And yes, we need to continue to move businesses forward and whatever else in our life. And, it feels sometimes like it's monotonous, but it's also almost like physical related. And I wanted to highlight this topic because I think there's so much we can do mentally
Mhm.
And a lot of that comes down to like what we can do with our moods. I'm not perfect at it every day, but I really try to get up in the morning. And as soon as I wake up, right, I don't reach for my phone anymore like I used to, but I'll say things like, hey, God, today's going to be a great day. Like, let's go attack this. There are great things that are going to happen to me. I go to bed at night and I'm like, hey, this is what happened to me today. I could have improved here, but we're going to do these things. And I try to map out how you can switch your emotions almost
Yeah.
to where you're focusing on certain things. And I've actually been astounded at the impact that it has on my own personal life.
Yeah, I'll give you a dumb example. I totally agree. I think previously we had talked about the bedtime routine that I have with my 11-year-old, which is we do devotional, we do prayers, but one of the components for the prayers is what is something you are grateful for and what is something that you're proud of yourself for. And we go through those same two questions every single night because to me, it's important that even if you've had the most awful day, you can still find those two things in it. And it keeps you grounded and your mind focused on a glimmer of sunshine, maybe in an otherwise like really tough period of time. And Burke will say sometimes when he's in a really bad mood, he'll say, well, I don't have anything that I'm grateful for. And the response is there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something that you can be proud of yourself for. It might not be as big as it was the day before or as, something that you maybe were hoping to get out of the day. But when you train your mind to recognize those positive attributes about your circumstances, about the work that you've put in, it will naturally cultivate more of that energy the longer you go by doing that practice.
Yeah, and it's funny because just pulling on the thread of Napoleon Hill, he's got a bunch of like YouTube videos out, which they're not actually him; it's some AI generated thing, but but they're really good. And I had one today when I was in the gym that I was listening to, and it basically says, you can't change the past, you can't change future, you don't know what's coming in the future. All you can do is own the now. And every now that you own, when you make the right decision, when you choose to be happy, when you choose to see the positivity, when you choose to search for opportunity, if you don't do that, the opposite actually happens. Like his whole point is basically if you own the now, if you make the right decision now, you have another opportunity in the future to make that same decision. And when you impact those, you own enough nows, you what we call conquer the day. When you
Across
conquer
the day. Yep.
enough days
Yeah.
in a week, you conquer the week and then the month and the year and so on and so forth. And so it has this residual impact. And again, I want to stress this because I think a lot of people think about the decisions they can make to own themselves financially or, how to get that next job promotion or how to move a project forward. But we rarely hear people talk about what you can do with your mind and how important this number one understanding of our internal monologue is. And we've talked about this in a number of different podcasts. So we don't need to go into that again. But when you make your identity the thing that you are going to do, I'm going to be a happy person. I am going to be filled with fun and joy. I'm going to see opportunities today. You go out and you will see those things subconsciously that you're drawing that energy into yourself and they start to appear and you get more and more of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of people, especially when times get hard, and I can say I used to be like this too, right? It's you begin to just wallow in the things that you don't like. And to be able to train your mind to say, I may not like where I'm at, but can find the good in it. So I think sometimes when people hear like train your mind to be happy, it's I'm going to be happy and go lucky and everything's fine. And that's not what we're saying at
Yeah.
all. What you're
Yeah.
saying is it can be a really hard period of time, but you trained your mind to appreciate what it can find the things that you can control, and be able to define actions that take you to that future success point that you have tied your identity to. And I think that's really important for people to understand that we're not purporting a disillusionment of, reality, like, oh, your reality's not that bad. No, it might really suck. It might be
Yeah.
terrible, but you are more than just that moment of circumstances. You are in control. And when you train your mind to seek the future version of yourself that you ultimately have defined as success, that will shift your perspective from one of this is terrible to there are positive things and this is what's in my control. And I'm going to keep going because I know that the future version of me is waiting for me to get there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I love that so much. And I think adding to that, I'm always surprised at ripple effect or even tangential effect that it has on the other aspects of my life. And I mean, we could talk about impacts it makes on, things like your son and
Yeah.
your marriage and things like that. I have that in my family life, but I'm always surprised when now things will come up in business or in
Hmm.
relationships, and where I used to be like, we lost some big things for HG this week, which was, I mean, it was terrible. But at the end of the day, what's cool about it is it's like, okay, well, it's just another day, right? It doesn't actually like slow me down anymore like it used to. I used to get really, it'd take up half of my day or take up 2 or 3 days, or I get so frustrated about it. And now I just have this attitude of like, okay, well, that didn't work out. Guess what? There's 7 other things over here that we can go do. And that is a really, I think, impactful piece because, again, when you step back and you have this identity of, I'm going to be a happy person, just be a happier person. It doesn't mean you have to
Yeah.
be the person that you're talking about, or I'm a person of discipline, right? You're no longer focused on, the work that it takes to be disciplined. It's now, guess what? You and I get up every single day. We write down our stuff on our essential action list and we get it done. And that's just the way life is. And we don't think about it anymore. It's not work. Hey, I actually like this structure because this is the type of person I am. This is the standard I hold for myself. And so now you end up becoming this person when you put in enough repetitions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And and people do respond differently. And dumb example, but like think about going to a meeting, right? And you can show up and you can be Debbie Downer because the dog crapped on the part on the carpet and you're late for your meeting, whatever it is, and you can show up that way. And then think about the energy that that portrays to the other people in that meeting. Or you show up as, that's terrible, but here I go. These people deserve the happier version of me, the best version of me that I can contribute to this situation because this meeting is important because it's tied to something in the future that I want to get to. And you show up in a different way and it creates a completely different energy. And I think about those moments in time because those really start directing your path, even though they seem like such small moments of control and ability to shift course.
Yeah. So what can people do on a daily basis now to maybe start this process? What should they be doing to take 1 or 2 actions today and then maybe carry that through the weekend? We're shooting this on a Friday, so it's probably not going to go out until next week, but like what can they do for 2 or 3 days to really get themselves acquainted with this process?
I would suggest doing one of two things. So either pick up the bedtime practice that I described or the morning practice that you described, start your day or end your day with positive thoughts and tie them directly to a future version of you or a future goal that you are trying to achieve. And then I would say pick one thing that you know each day that you have to show up for. And that could be your son's game, it could be a work event, it could be a tough family, whatever it is. Just pick one a day and define before going into that the type of person that you are going to show up in that situation. And then reflect after a couple of days. Did you notice it different? Did people respond to you differently? Would you have done anything differently? Maybe it didn't feel authentic because you forced happiness and it really isn't where you were, but you would do it a different way. So those would be just some quick and easy things people can go because then that will help you define how to do this practice more efficiently and more effectively in the future moving forward.
Yeah, that's good. I'm just going to add one thing in there that I think is super important, which is because this helped me, right? I find so many people that have maybe the narrative is I'm so busy, I can't take anything else on. And one thing that worked for me, because I had that for the longest time too, before you realize how to be a more productive person, how to really get your priorities in order, it's amazing where your time kind of slips away. So I used to say, I'm going to take 5 minutes. And if everybody, I don't care who you are, you have
Yeah, you
five
have 5 minutes.
right? You could do it when you're using the bathroom, right? You could do it when you're in the shower. You could do it, like you said, I love that. Like take a pause before you go into your like a next event, 2 minutes, whatever it is. Define your time frame and fit whatever Lisa just said into that time frame. I've got 5 minutes. This is how I'm going to spend it. And you're going to do that every day. And when you chunk it down to like such a small amount of time, but you spend it in focused, in a focused direction with intent, I think that really helps maybe solidify the behavior and the mentality of it because you're like, okay, I've got the 5 minutes. I'm going to get to my kids' school a little bit early and I'm just going to sit in the car for 5 minutes before they come out instead of scrolling on my phone. And when you can do that for such a short amount of time, it will start to open your eyes as you kind of chip away with everything that we're talking about here.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, hopefully that helps some people. And it was a long intro.
We're working on
I'll
it.
save it up for the next time. But this has been great. Love this, and of course, we'll continue to share, continue to build as we move forward. So tune in next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks,
All
Nate.
right, see ya. Bye.
Yep.